The topic for today is data visualization and dashboards with Tableau. And this is something that we will attempt to create today. So let's see if we can get there. Now, Tableau is a GUI or a graphical user interface based desktop application for analyzing and visualizing data. And Tableau is often used by data analysts and business analysts to create and publish real-time interactive online business intelligence dashboards. So let's break that down a little bit. What do we mean by real-time? A dashboard that is connected to actual live data, let's say a database, and is populated, all the graphs and all the tables are populated with live data. And interactive, the dashboard allows filtering, sorting, and things like that, so that somebody who's looking at the data can actually dig in and do a little bit of analysis, not too much, but just enough so that they can get some more insight than they can get with a static chart. Online. So these dashboards are typically published online and people can access them either using their web browser or using applications. So their Tableau has some viewer applications. So as a data analyst, you will create a dashboard and then you will publish it. And maybe the executives, maybe other stakeholders, maybe product managers, sales teams, etc., might then use the link you give them, the dashboard link, to look at these dashboards, maybe on a daily basis, and interact with those dashboards directly from within their browser or using some kind of a viewer application. And these are business intelligence dashboards. So typically these are used to track important business metrics, and every team, every company, every product, whatever organization you take within a corporation or even within universities or any kind of organization has certain goals and perform certain activities to further those goals. And they have to measure if those activities are helping achieve those goals or not. And that is what business intelligence basically means. Are the activities we are doing helping us achieve our goals? And one of the typical goals for businesses is to generate profit. So just tracking profits or tracking revenues or tracking users or tracking orders or tracking maybe expenses, all of these things are part of business intelligence. Okay. So that's what Tableau is. It's a business intelligence tool, although it can be used to do a lot more, but that is what it is typically used for. And there are several other tools which are used for the exact same purpose. Tools like Power BI, this is owned by Microsoft. Tableau is owned by Salesforce. ClickView, which is another popular tool. Then you have Looker. Looker is owned by Google, and you have Mode. So you have all of these different tools which serve similar use cases and have slightly different interfaces and work in slightly different ways. The last time I used Tableau was while I was working at Twitter to create certain revenue dashboards for sales and product teams. And a lot has changed since then. But what I want to do here is take the opportunity to share with you the process that I would follow to learn a tool like this, because you may learn Tableau today, but the company you apply to may require you to use Power BI. So we'll just talk a little bit about how to learn these tools as well and not just try and learn this specific tool Tableau. So here are the topics that we are going to cover today. The first thing is downloading and installing Tableau. And there are a few versions that we'll look at. Next, we will look at how to connect Tableau to local files and remote data sources. Next, we will set up a data source with some tables and some relationships for analysis. Then we will create interactive visualizations to answer questions about data. Then we'll also create and publish an interactive dashboard of interconnected visualizations. And finally, we'll learn how to publish, view, and share dashboards online. So let's start with downloading and installing Tableau. Now, Tableau is primarily used as a desktop application, and there are two versions of the Tableau desktop application that you can download. The first one, which we're going to use today, is called Tableau Public. This is a free desktop application that you can use to create visualizations and publish them online to your Tableau Public profile. So if you go to public.tableau.com, you can enter your email address and you can download the app here. Let me just show you that here. Yeah, you can enter your email address and you can download the desktop application here. This application is available for Windows and Mac. And you can also sign up and create a Tableau public account. And this Tableau public account, just like your GitHub account or your Jovian account, can be used to create a portfolio of your public projects. So if you're applying to a company that uses Tableau extensively, you can share a link to your Tableau public account and they can check out all the visualizations you've created. Now, once you download the app, this is what the app will look like. So this here is Tableau public. I've opened it up. I've downloaded it, installed it on my computer and opened it up. And this is what it looks like when you open it for the first time. And you can also sign in here. So you will have the option to sign in and to your Tableau public account so that any work that you do here can be published to your Tableau public profile. Okay. And once you sign in, this is what your profile looks like. This is your Tableau public profile. Here you can have all these visualizations that you publish. There is also a gallery and you can discover visualizations created by other people. Like these are some visualizations that have been created using Tableau. Okay, and you can actually click through and interact with these visualizations. Now, one other thing that you can do on Tableau public, the web-based interface is click this Create Wiz button, and that will give you a similar interface as the desktop application, except that it will be limited in a few respects. It will not have the entire functionality. Maybe it will also be a little slower. But in case you are unable to download Tableau public, the desktop application on your computer, because maybe you don't have space or maybe you're running Linux, then you can also follow along with this tutorial online by clicking Create a Wiz after signing into public.tableau.com. So that is Tableau public. That's what we are going to use today. So please go to public.tableau.com and download it whenever you want to follow along with this tutorial. But of course, Tableau is used primarily within companies, and companies in most cases do not want to put up all their business intelligence data online publicly. So Tableau has something called a Tableau desktop, which is the primary application that they create. And Tableau desktop is another application just like Tableau public, a desktop application. The difference is it has several additional capabilities. It has support for private projects, and it has support for connecting to remote data sources with authentication within your company. And it is suitable for personal private use or use within teams. So this is the version that you will most likely be using professionally. And you can learn more about it at tableau.com/product/desktop. The interface looks pretty similar to Tableau public, except that you have a few more bells and whistles. Then there is also a browser-based version of Tableau. So if you go to online.tableau.com, and if you have a Tableau desktop subscription, then you can also use Tableau online from the browser. And you'll have to sign in here to access this, and you'll be able to do all the things that you do in Tableau desktop, except things might be a little slower and a few capabilities may be missing. So these three, Tableau public, Tableau desktop, and Tableau online, these are all different ways to create Tableau visualizations and to create dashboards and publish dashboards. Tableau public is used to just publish them online publicly. Tableau desktop is used typically within a team. And Tableau online also is just simply an alternative for Tableau desktop in the browser. Then there is Tableau Viewer, and Tableau Viewer is a web-based application to view and interact with the dashboards that are created using or published using Tableau desktop or Tableau online or Tableau public. So there are creators, people who create these dashboards, people who load up some data, create visualizations. That's us, data scientists, data analysts. And then there are viewers who are typically other stakeholders like executives, product managers, salespeople, etc., who simply use the dashboards and interact with those dashboards on a daily basis. And hopefully the dashboard is connected to some real-time data, like your production database, SQL database or something, so that the dashboards keeps getting updated regularly from time to time. Now in this tutorial, we will use Tableau Public, which is available as a desktop application for Windows and Mac. And if you're on Linux, you can just sign into public.tableau.com and use the web-based interface for creating visualizations. Now, when you launch Tableau Public or Tableau Desktop, this is the interface that you will see. So here you have an option to connect to a data source, or you have the option to open up one of your existing projects, or you have the option to look at some videos and tutorials and some public visualizations like racial bias in football commentary. So before you can create a visualization in Tableau, you will need to connect to a data source. And this is typically done using the Connect tab here. And Tableau can be connected to several kinds of data sources. Here are some common ones. Excel workbooks. So if you have an Excel workbook sitting on your computer and you want to visualize it using Tableau, just select the Microsoft Excel option here and you will be able to open up the Excel workbook. Now, why would you do the visualization in Tableau and not in Excel? Couple of reasons. On Tableau, the visualization can be a lot richer, can be a lot more interactive. Second, you can also publish it to a dashboard and other people can then check it out in the browser. And third, you can also combine data from multiple data sources, like maybe even an Excel sheet and a CSV file, etc., etc. Then you can also work with plain CSV files or JSON files or PDFs, even if you have a PDF with a table inside it, or even spatial data. If you have a GeoJSON file, polygons and markers and points, you can use those as well. So you have the appropriate file type. You can just select the appropriate file type here. Even some statistical files can be loaded. Then you can also connect to relational databases. This is not available on Tableau Public, but this is available on Tableau Desktop, the paid version, the one that is used within companies. And if your company has a relational database like a MySQL Server database, you can simply connect to it by providing credentials of the SQL Server, the host name, port, username, password, etc. And it will work in exactly the same way as we see today. And maybe we'll take a look at that towards the very end if you have some time, okay? But whichever way you load data, ultimately the way you work with data will remain the same. Now this is not all. Tableau can be connected to over 100 other data sources like Google Analytics, Google Sheets, Dropbox, Salesforce, and a lot more. They've built out connectors for all these different platforms and software. In particular, I have used Vertica, which is a SQL, which is a relational kind of database. It's called a columnar database, and it was used to store really large data sets. So typically SQL databases like MySQL, Postgres break down if you go beyond maybe tens of GBs of data. But this particular data set that we were working with at the time went into hundreds of GBs, probably even close to a TB. So we used Vertica to store the data, and then we used Tableau to visualize the data. So Tableau can work with really large data sets. That's another advantage. It can work with tens of millions of rows of data as well. Now in this tutorial, we will use a sample dataset that is provided on Tableau's official website for a bunch of tutorials and a bunch of examples. It contains mock data from a supermarket with stores across the United States. And it is available as an Excel workbook. So here is a link for you to download this dataset. It's an Excel workbook. Just click on this link and you should be able to download it. And I have it open here. So I just want to show you what this Excel workbook looks like. So it seems like you have three sheets here. You have an order sheet, you have a people sheet, and a return sheet. And this order sheet presumably contains information about orders that have been placed, orders that have been completed at different locations of this particular store, superstore. So here we have a row ID for each row. We have an order ID, and notice that order IDs can show up multiple times because these are actually line items within the order. So within an order, you can have multiple products. So we have an order ID. Then we have a date of the order, which will be constant for the same order ID, I would hope. And then you have a ship date. So the order was placed on a certain date. The order was shipped on a certain date. And the way this was shipped, there was second class, standard class. Then you have a customer ID, and then you have a customer's name. And then you have a bunch of segments. So customers are grouped into segments like consumers, home office, enterprise, etc. Then we have the customer's region, customer's city, customer's state, postal code, region within the United States. And then we have information about the products. So here is a product ID. And you can see there's a difference here. So this is one product that was bought in the order, and this is the second product. Both belong to the category furniture. The subcategory for the first product is bookcase. The second one is chairs. And here you have the product name. And then you have the sales. So the amount of money that was paid for each product. And here is a quantity of each product. And the sales includes the quantity. So 731 is the total amount for 3 of these chairs, I believe, or 3 of these bookcases. Then you have a discount if there was a discount. And finally, you have the profit that was made on that particular line item. Okay. So that's what a typical order book looks like. You have order IDs and you have products and you have information about customers. There are also a couple of other sheets. There's a sheet called people. And this people simply contains information about the person responsible for a specific region. So the entire United States has been divided into 4 regions: West, East, Central, and South. And we have the persons who are responsible, the points of contact. And then we also have these returns. So there's this sheet called returns, which contains simply a list of all the orders that were returned. This is the order ID. And whether this was returned, it just says yes. So this is the data that we are working with. And to set up the data source to start analyzing this data using Tableau, the first thing we need to do is, as it says here, just click connect and select Microsoft Excel. And I'm just going to select samplesuperstore.xls. That's the Excel workbook. And now you can see already we have orders, people, and returns. So we have all these 3 sheets showing up here. And then of course, there's also these ranges within the sheets, but we can just work with the sheets here and that should be good enough. And you can just click view data if you just want to quickly view the data, just like you would in Excel. And this also tells you how many rows there are in the data. If you want to just see 10 rows, you can also just type 10 and it'll show you just 10 rows of data. Similarly, here we can see people and we can see returns. Okay. So when you pick either an Excel file or a MySQL database or a CSV file or something else, you will see in the left a bunch of sheets or a bunch of tables that have been automatically detected from the file that you selected for the data source. Okay. And you can have multiple data sources as well. If I wanted, I could add another connection here. I could add another connection, select another Excel file, get that in. That would add in a bunch of other sheets here and so on. And then we can also combine data from multiple sources like that. Okay. But we are just going to use this one right now. Now, once you connect to a data source, you will see the data source page that we've just seen. And now you can select and browse the tables that you wish to use for your analysis, and you can define relationships between them. So let me show you how to do that. I think the primary table we are going to analyze today is called orders. So let me just drag that into this region. So this is called the canvas. And we also know that there is this table called people. And in the people table, we have regions. And this region corresponds to a region, or it should match up with the region in the orders column. So there is a potential to join these two things or merge these two tables. So if you simply drag this table in, Tableau will automatically detect that there is a common column and it will try to establish a relationship between the two. And here you can actually set up what the relationship looks like. So Tableau has detected that the region column in orders should match the region column in people. Now it's not really performing a join or a merge here. It is simply establishing a relationship. We're simply telling Tableau that, hey, these two columns represent the same thing, so that when we need to do a certain visualization, Tableau can automatically perform joins under the hood. Okay. So it's very smart. It is efficient enough not to do joins beforehand and simply just establish the relationship. Now, to improve the performance of this relationship, you can also specify whether this is a many-to-many relationship or a one-to-many relationship. Now, here's what I can say, that in the people table, every row or every region in the people table occurs only once. But the same regions can occur many times in the orders table. So here I can actually select one, and that will just make the performance of Tableau a little more efficient. It won't matter for a small Excel sheet that we're working with, but you may have to just think carefully about many-to-many or one-to-many or one-to-one relationships. And if you select the right options, Tableau will be a little more performant, that's all. And there's also a referential and integrity check here. Do you want to allow having some regions here which are not picked up in orders, or do you want to allow having some regions here which are not present in the people column? So by default, it is very flexible. It allows you to not have matches on either side. So you can just leave the defaults as it is for most cases. But if you're facing performance issues, maybe you can change that. Okay. And that's it. So now we've set up a relationship and we can just close this. So now we have orders. And if we click on orders, we will be able to see all the data for orders here, the same table. And you will see that Tableau has automatically detected the data types. Here it is detected that order is a number. In fact, it's a whole number. And then order ID is a string. Order date is a date. Ship date is also a date. Ship mode is a string. Customer ID is a string too. Then let's keep going here. Let's check some other. So it has detected that country/region is actually geographical data. So you can see here, it has actually picked up geographic role, country/region. And it is also picked up automatically that this is a city. It has identified that these are geographies that we're working with. And it has identified state, that this is the state or province. So it has identified that even within strings, there is a geographic role for this. Next, it has also identified postal code automatically. So that's pretty useful. If it does not, you can always model. Let's say this was called something else. You can always change the type of data by just selecting postal code here. Then you have region, product ID, category, subcategory, product name. And then again, you can see here you have sales, quantity, and here it has detected whether this is a number with a decimal or a whole number. And then you have profit, etc. as well. Okay, so that's the order table. So you can also just explore the data directly within Tableau. You don't have to open it up in Excel or as a CSV file somewhere in Jupyter. And here is a people table once again. And let's also drag in the returns table here. There we go. So it is once again detected that the order ID is something that should line up between the returns table. And in this case, it is a many-to-many relationships. You can have multiple order IDs across rows on both sides. So yeah, we'll just close that. And with that, our data source has been set up. One last thing I'll do is just change this to sample. Let me just change this to Superstore. I've created a data source, Superstore here. And if you wish, you can actually create multiple data sources within the same Tableau project. So you can create another data source, and maybe in this next data source, you want to use a different set of tables, and maybe you want to create another data source where you want to use a different set of tables, right? So it's a very flexible tool. You can connect to many different sources of data. You can connect to Microsoft Excel, SQL, etc., get all the tables. And then you can create these data sources that you can configure relationships between tables, and you can create multiple data sources, each of which can create tables from the different connections that you've created. Okay. So there's a many-to-many relationship there. A few other things about the interface. You have this manage metadata. So you have this other view where you can simply see the metadata or simply the field names, table names, etc. And then you can also sort the fields as well. Yep. So that's our data source. I think our data source is pretty set. One other thing here is if you want to explicitly perform joins, although Tableau will do joins for you when you're creating visualizations, but if you really want to explicitly perform joins, you can double click a table and then you can drag another table and then you can join these two tables. So here, for example, this is an inner join. If you want, you can set up an left join, right join, or full outer join on specific columns. Okay. This is how Tableau used to operate earlier, where you had to create joins explicitly for all tables. But the new interface now is simply to just drag in tables and set up relationships, and Tableau will do joins behind the scenes for you efficiently. So that's the data source page, and we've looked at the various components here. The left pane shows the connected data source and the details about your data. The canvas here shows you the tables and the relationships between tables. If you double click, you can also see what's called the physical canvas, where you can actually set up joins between tables if you want to query data in that fashion. Then you have this data grid here that we just looked at, and this data grid contains all the data that you can browse. And you also have this metadata grid here that you can view. Okay. And you can check out the documentation. Tableau has pretty detailed documentation, so you can check out more about the different parts of the data source here. And other tools will have a similar interface. So you should just spend some time becoming familiar with the interface. Typically, every tool will have this kind of a help website like help.tableau.com. And on help, I simply went to get started. And on get started, I simply went step by step and came to data source. And this is where I picked up some of this information from. So there's more information here for you to see. It's not that you have to learn or memorize all of this information about every piece of software you learn, but just know the basics, just know the high level, and know where to get more information. Now we've set up the Superstore data source by performing these actions. And this is what we have ended up with eventually. We've also renamed this data source to Superstore. Now we are ready to start visualizing the data. And the way to visualize the data is to open a sheet. So by default, there is one sheet ready for us to visualize, do some visualizations, but we can also click plus new worksheets. And sheets in Tableau are different from sheets in Excel. The sheets in Excel are simply these data grids, which have been loaded in as tables. In Tableau, this is what a sheet looks like. And because a Tableau is a visualization tool, so every sheet is a place for you to create one visualization. So remember that. Every Tableau sheet is used to create one visualization, and then you can create multiple sheets to create multiple visualizations. So this is a sheet, and let's go over this interface step by step. So this is what the interface looks like. And right now we've not put in any visualization here, but there will be a visualization here. So let's go over this. At the very top, this is simply the title bar. This contains the name of the workbook that we are creating. So Tableau projects are stored in workbooks, just like Excel projects are workbooks. Similarly, Tableau projects are also stored in workbooks. And a workbook can contain multiple data sources. A workbook can contain multiple sheets. It can also contain some dashboards and some stories, which are like collections of dashboards. An entire Tableau project fits into something called a workbook, and that is saved as a file, or that is published as a single project on Tableau Public online. Now within this, so this is the workbook name, book 1. Now within the workbook, you have on the left, you have the sidebar, and this is called the data pane. This is where you can select a data source. And once you select a data source, you will see a bunch of tables from that data source. And we've created just one data source here, Superstore. So we don't see an option to change the data source, but we have a bunch of tables. So we have the tables order, people, returns, and then we have fields or columns from those tables. So we'll take a closer look at it shortly. Apart from data, there is also an analytics tab. So you can either just drag some of this stuff to create visualizations, or you can also use the analytics tab to add some aggregate measures. And we'll maybe take a look at one or two of these as well. Then this area, then you have a toolbar here at the top. So there are a bunch of different toolbars. You can create a new data source, create a new worksheet, duplicate a sheet, and then you can swap rows and columns within a visualization, do some sorting, highlight stuff. You can set up some display options, and then you can also enter a presentation mode where you can just display this. Let's say you're presenting this in a meeting, so you can just display just the visualization and hide all the UI. So that's that piece. Then you have this show me button. If you actually click this tab, which shows you all the different types of charts that are available, that can be toggled on or off. So this lights up when you select a particular column. Let's say I select sales. You'll see that a bunch of charts light up, like a histogram lights up. And maybe if I select a region and I select sales, and I'm using command or control to select two columns, then it shows me what are all the possible charts I can create. So it turns out that if I click region and sales, then I can create a pie chart. So let's maybe just quickly create a pie chart here. Okay. And now in this pie chart, now we have this visualization. So this is where the actual visualization lives. Now this is where the visualization lives. And in this visualization, to configure the visualization, you have all these things. So these are called shelves. So you have columns. You can specify what you want to show on the x-axis. Those are the columns. You can specify what you want to show on the y-axis. Those are the rows. You can also specify pages and filters. So filters are used to just add some interactivity. Pages are also used to add some interactivity. Then you can specify some more other configuration, like divide things by color, size, add tooltips to the data, add some details to the data. So we'll go through all of these slowly, but this is where all the magic happens. So that's what a sheet, including a single visualization, looks like. So it contains a workbook name at the top. It contains the card shelves. So these are called shelves and these are called cards. Then it contains the toolbar. Here is the toolbar. And it contains the view, or this is also called the canvas, where you actually see the visualization. Yeah, then one other thing here is if you ever want to go back to the start page, you can click here and that takes you to the start page. Maybe you want to add another file. You can do that. And you can click back on the Tableau icon to come back into this book view. And then you have a data source tab and you have the status bar. So at the bottom, you have a status bar that gives you some important information. It also shows you here that I'm logged in into Tableau Public. One other thing you can do here is you can change the view. So you have this, currently we are looking at the tab view. You can also see sheets like this. If you have visualizations in multiple sheets, you can actually see a thumbnail of the visualization. Or you can also just see a grid of sheets and very quickly browse and arrange sheets as well. Yeah, so that's the Tableau interface, and the interface for other BI tools will be again more or less similar, not exactly the same for sure, but again, it's worth spending some time just getting to know any software you use, just getting to know all the different parts of the user interface. Okay, so let's talk about the data pane. That's where all the data lives. That's where we pick up data from. So the data pane in the left sidebar shows all the columns, and columns in Tableau are also known as fields from all the data, from all the tables. So here we have the tables. The tables are orders and people and returns. And you will notice that there are two kinds of columns. So you have these ones in blue, and then you have some in green. So fields are grouped under table names. We've seen that already. And then fields are also classified into dimensions. These are called dimensions. These are categorical data. And you can see here city, country, customer ID, customer name, etc. These are categorical data as detected by Tableau. Typically, these are non-numeric data types. It also detects that row ID is probably categorical and not a number, even though the data type is a number. And then you have these numeric data types. They are called measures. So here you have discount, profit, quantity, sales. Yeah, all of these are numeric data types. These are called measures. Now, if you feel Tableau has made a mistake, like if you think row ID should actually be a measure, then you can just drag it, I think, and that will become a measure. And if you feel that maybe one of these, let's say month of the year, which is a number that should be treated as a category, you can then drag it in here as a category as well. Okay, so you can always change these, but Tableau is smart enough in most cases to figure this out for you. Then there are also several auto-generated fields that you will notice. For example, here you have this orders count. This is simply the count of the number of rows in the orders table. So that's something useful you can drag around and use. Then you have similarly count fields here. And then it has also auto-generated these latitude and longitude variables. So remember, Tableau identified the geographic data. Now for all the geographic data, Tableau automatically finds the latitudes and longitudes. Assuming, of course, that you're using the standard names that show up on a map like Google Maps or something. And then there are also a couple of other fields called measure names and measure values. So we'll see how these work, but these are again used to just create certain kinds of tables, and we'll see what those tables look like. But measure name simply contains the names of all the fields. It contains names of all these fields that we see here. And measure values contains well, actually not all the fields, just all the measure fields. So measure name simply is a list containing discount, profit, quantity, sales. And yeah, these are all the measure fields. and measure values contains some kind of an average or some value for each of these, right? So we'll see about measure names and measure values soon as well. But this is where we have all the columns to choose from. Okay. Now, there are a couple of things you can do to organize this, because you may end up with very large tables or tables with a lot of columns, and you may have to do a lot of scrolling. So one thing you can do is organize fields into hierarchies, and it also adds some more meaning to these fields. So we know that we have country region that defines the entire country, which is the United States in this case for everyone. But then within the United States, we have a region. So we have north, northeast, southwest, or north, south, east, west, I guess, for region. So I'm just going to drag region over country, and I'm going to create a hierarchy here and call that location. So in location, the top level is country, and then under country we have region. Under region we have state. So I'm going to add it inside the hierarchy location. Under state we have city, and under city we have postal code. Okay. So now this is basically a single field location that has been split across all of these things: country, region, state, city, and postal code. And we can tell Tableau that there is this hierarchy of locations by simply selecting this. And let's see, maybe we can do one more here. So yeah, let's create a product hierarchy, which contains, again, with products, we have a category. So let me drag subcategory into category, and let me call this product. And then let me also put in product. Let me put in product name here. So we have category, subcategory, and product name. I've added it here. Next up, let's maybe create one other thing you can do is you can actually create something called folders. Now, folders are not hierarchies. Folders are where you simply want to just organize data a little bit better. So if you do not have hierarchical data, but you still want to group data just to make things a little easier, you can create folders. You can hide fields that you do not want to look at. So if I just grab product ID, I am just going to hide this here. And similarly, I'm also going to hide row ID, customer ID, and product ID. So let me also hide row ID. I'm not going to use that. So I'm going to hide row ID. I'm also going to hide customer ID. Not going to use that because we have customer name. So I'm going to hide this as well. Okay. Yeah. So now we've cleaned it up a little bit, and we can go on cleaning it up a little further as well. Again, by creating more hierarchies and by creating more folders. And that's all the stuff that you can do within the data pane just to organize the data. But let's get to the interesting part now, which is to create interactive visualizations. So every sheet in a Tableau workspace contains one visualization. And these visualizations are also called whiz or whizzes in Tableau. So each sheet is a whiz, and Tableau can be used to create several types of interactive visualizations. You can see that we can create line charts, bar charts, histograms. In fact, if you just click show me, you can see all the different kinds of visualizations it supports. You can also create a simple text table, but you have heat maps, highlighted tables, a bunch of geographical maps, pie charts, etc., etc. How do you create visualizations? Well, a simple way to create visualizations is to select two things. Let's say we want to visualize the sales by order date. So I select order date, I select sales, and I'm clicking command here or control here, holding down control or command to select these two, and just click show me, and it will tell you automatically what kind of charts you can create. Maybe let's create a line chart here. So there you go. Now we've created a line chart, and in this line chart, we are showing the year, and then we're showing the sales and the sum of sales for a particular year. So that's what this is doing. All right. Now you can then name this visualization. So let me just name this sales by year. So now you have added a name here. If you want to show this as a currency, so we can actually just go in here. We can click on sales. Yeah, here we can select sales, and here we can select a number format somewhere here. Yeah, let's click format. And in the number format, we can select that the number format is currency. So we can select that this is a currency. And now this has become a currency here. Okay. So we can just close that, put that away, close that. So now we have a currency here. Here we have the years. Now, if we want to show, instead of the years, we want to show months. So we can actually select the level of granularity here. So if you want to show months, then I can select month. And now we are looking at month-wise data. So we have 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. This is the month-wise data for sales by year. Or let's just call it sales by month now. Okay. So that's how you create a line chart. One interesting thing you can do here is if I just revert back to sales by year, you can actually create multiple charts by creating categories. So if I just drag in order date here once again, right next to this, and here now it's automatically selected quarter. So now you can see what happened. It created 4 charts, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. And for each one, it has put in these 4 values, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, right? And similarly, let us do one other thing here. Let us select segment and let us drag segment here. So now we can split by customer segment. So now we can see the growth of consumer, corporate, home office, all in different charts. So whatever you drag into rows and columns keeps creating multiple divisions. So the top level division is based on year. So your rows are divided into year 2018, 19, 20, and 21. Then the second level division is by quarter. So we have Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Similarly, here we have segment. So here we have consumer, corporate, home office. Then we have sales. So now we have this axis showing the sales. And that's how you can show charts in a grid. Now, maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to show, instead of segments separately, you want to show them as different colored lines. So you can take segment and you can drag it on color. And now you can see here, now you are actually visualizing using a different color each segment. So you have the color blue represents Q2. The color blue represents consumer. The color orange represents corporate. The color red represents home office, right? So you can experiment with this in multiple ways and see how you want to show it. Maybe what we want to do is we do want to show segment here separately, and then we want to actually show the product category. So if I just select the product category here, we want to show the product category as a color. So maybe this is what we're going for. So now we have consumer, corporate, home office segment. We have sales for each one. And here we're looking at the product categories for the growth of sales in different product categories. And yeah, that's how you create a chart. Maybe you don't want to do a line chart. Maybe you want to do a bar chart. So replacing that with a bar chart is fairly straightforward. Of course, things have changed around a little bit, but you can then once again just study the columns and figure out how we want to organize the bar chart as well. Yeah, so in a bar chart, you can only have this single option for rows. So different charts have different limitations. Here's what I will suggest. Try creating one chart of each type from the above list. And there is this guide that you can look at. What chart should you create, choosing the right chart type. So you can just read through this guide and try and figure out what kind of charts you can create. And try experimenting with all of these. Try experimenting by putting things into columns, putting things into rows. The easiest way that I have found of creating charts is to select the required information that you want to visualize. Once again, like order date and profit. Order date and profit. And then select the right chart type. Or you can also go maybe city or like state and profit. And then you can select right chart type and that will show your map or something. And then you start dragging things into rows and columns or into color, size, text, etc. Okay. But the best way to create a chart in Tableau is to start by asking a question. So let's ask and answer a few questions about the data. And these questions are taken from the tutorials on Tableau's official website. And this is where I want to share with you the approach that I would typically follow for learning from the official tutorials. It's not enough to just read the tutorials, or it's also not enough to maybe just read the tutorials and immediately follow along. Here is what I recommend, that first read the question and try to solve it by yourself. Maybe give yourself 5 or 10 minutes. And based on your current knowledge of the software, try to figure it out. And what happens when you do this is you encounter certain difficulties and you realize what you don't know. Then you watch the video tutorial or maybe read the explanation that tells you how to answer the question. So in this case, there are video tutorials available on Tableau, but otherwise there are always written explanations. So now when you're watching the video, you know what you missed. So now you will be able to pick up the important information. Then you watch the video completely or read the tutorial once and then try to again replicate the steps on your own from memory by looking up online resources. Maybe look up some hints here and there, maybe refer to other parts of the documentation. But that is how you get the most out of a tutorial. Try to solve the question on your own first, identify where you feel stuck, then watch the video or read the tutorial. So the areas where you were stuck are automatically highlighted in your mind. So you will pay attention to them. And then once again, you replicate it on your own without looking at the tutorial. And that will again reinforce the concept in your mind. So just by following this process, not just for Tableau, but for anything that you want to learn, your learning will be a lot more effective. And you can go one step further and try and solve a similar problem. So then define a slightly different question, one that is not already defined, and try to solve that problem on your own. And maybe do that a couple of times. And then you'll automatically start becoming proficient at whatever software or whatever tool you're learning. Okay. So try and apply this technique, not just to Tableau, but maybe also to Power BI or some other visualization software and see if it works for you. So here's the first question we will try and answer. What is the profit ratio in different states? And we want to visualize this using a map. So I've written out some steps here, but we'll try and see how much of it we can do on our own. So the first thing we need is we want to figure out the profit ratio. We have the profit, which is an amount, but that's not what we want. We're looking for the profit ratio. What is the profit ratio? The profit ratio is the profit divided by the sales, right? So you can create a new field called profit ratio. And this we do using create calculated field. So we say create calculated field and we type profit ratio. And just like Excel, Tableau has its own language of expressing formulas. So I'm just going to type sum. So the profit ratio is simply the sum of profit divided by, and it's auto completing for me here, divided by the sum of sales. Okay. So what we're telling Tableau here is every time you have a certain set of rows, you can calculate the profit ratio for those set of rows by taking the sum of the profit column in all those rows of data and dividing that by the sum of sales in all those rows. Okay. So it's a very expressive formula here. We are not saying that we want the total profit divided by the total sales. We are not saying that we want the individual profit divided by the sales for an individual order. We are saying given any set of rows, this is how you compute the profit ratio. Okay. So if this can apply to a single row, this can apply to 10 rows, this can apply to all the rows together at once. Okay. So now we've created a profit ratio column and that shows up here under the measures. All right. Now we want to visualize profit ratios by states. So let me click on states. Let me click on profit ratio and there's a show me button here. And then we just visualize it. Let me use this one. It seems like this is a colored map. And there we go. So that gives us the profit ratio by state. Now, what is it doing here? Well, it seems like there is some kind of a color coding. So it seems like this profit ratio on the left, when it is dark, is negative, and when it is blue is positive. You can of course change this. So if we just go into this profit ratio here and we click, let's see, but we click format. I think we can change the colors. Let's see, maybe we can, yeah, we can do it here. We click on color and we can select the color palette here. The color palette, let's see. Yeah, let's use this red, blue, white diverging, or blue, orange, blue diverging. This should do it. So you can change that. You can also select whether you want to have continuous color map or steps. Maybe let's just do 6 steps. Let's also do, let's use maybe a specific range. advanced. Yeah. So we can actually also set a range. Now profit ratio is basically the percentage profit that can go from minus 0.5, which is minus 50%, to 0.5. I think by default, the lowest value is, yeah, I think the lowest value is what, minus 2.1, but I'm going to set it at minus 0.5. And I'm going to set plus as plus 0.5. So I know that my profit ratios are in the range minus 50% to 50%. But if you think they could be higher, maybe I could configure this to minus 1 to 1, which means minus 100% to 100%. Now, why am I explicitly putting in profit ratios here? It's a good way to just keep the data standardized. Now, this is not, this data is static, but suppose we were connected to a MySQL database, there the data could change every day. So the ranges of profits could change every day. And if the ranges of profits are changing because we had one very unprofitable state, or we had one extremely profitable state, then what these colors mean will change over time. But that's something we should try and avoid. We should make sure that the colors stay standard over time. So that's why we are fixing the start and end here. Okay. So think about this, think about why we are fixing it. And these are principles that you can apply to pretty much any BI tool. You just have to figure out what the UI, how the UI works, but ultimately this is what you have to take care of. So we're using stepped colors, orange, blue diverging, and minus 0.5 to 0.5. Let's do that. Okay. So now we can also maybe change the opacity a little bit. Maybe if you want to go 60% so that we can see the states a little clearer, let's say 75. Okay. So now that's much nicer. So now we can see we have these state-wise profit, and when we hover over it, it shows us the profit ratio. Maybe we want to also filter by region because we have specific people who head specific regions. So let me just drag region here onto the filters, and we can just say use all, or yeah, let's just select all right now. All right, so now we have this region filter, but of course it's not showing up anywhere. So we just need to select show filter here. And now we have the region filter showing up. So now in this sheet, we can actually click specific regions and hide the data for those regions. If we just want to look at the data for the central region. So there you go. Now we're just looking at the south region here. And if I select west, you can see now I have the south region and the west region. And now we have the east region as well. And then we have the central region as well. Okay. So that helps us visualize what we want to see. Yeah, maybe we should also add a profit ratio filter here. So let's try and add a profit ratio filter. So let's go to profit ratio and drag it into filters as well. And there are many ways you can set this filter. I'm just going to select the default range of values. And then once again, I'm going to select show filter. So what this does is it gives us this slider over here. And as we adjust this slider, we can see that that hides certain states. If I only want to show the profitable states, then I can drag the slider to around 0. And that will just show the profitable states. And it takes a minute to update. Yeah, there you go. So now we're only looking at 0.03, which means almost like close to 0 loss to or to a profit of about 36.98. Okay, so these are the profitable states. And of course, you can then drag this back and then drag this here to look at the non-profitable states as well. Okay. So that's how you create a chart, and that's how you answer a question, specifically by creating a geographical chart. Now you can learn more about formulas and calculated fields here, again, referring you to the right place. There are simple calculated fields, more advanced calculated fields, the kind of functions that it gives you. There's something called level of detail expressions that we will use later, and then a bunch of other things as well. Now this is where you would have to take an exercise, try coming up with some other location related questions and answer them by creating a map. And if you want to see, just do a quick review, there is also this original video where this problem is discussed. You can check out that original video as well. Let's look at another question. This one is asking, what are the total month-wise sales, profitable and unprofitable, across different categories of products? All right, so the first thing I'll do is just rename this sheet. I'm going to rename this sheet to sales by geography. And then I'm going to create a new sheet, and this sheet is going to be profit. Oh, profit ratio by geography. And I think what we want to calculate now is sales. So sales by category. So let me just call it sales by category. Okay. So we want to compute the month-wise sales, profitable and unprofitable. So we want to separate out profitable and unprofitable across different categories of products. So now we have this sheet, sales by category. And I am going to now maybe first select category here. Let's go to category. Let us select the sales here. We have sales. Yeah, with control. Click on show me. And let's do an area chart here. So category and sales. This should give us an. Okay, this doesn't give us an area chart. That is surprising. So let me just do this. I know that the sales or the order date will show up. Yeah, let me just put order date into the rows. I want the data here. I want the data in the rows. In the x-axis, I want the order date. And let me put sales here in columns. So now we have, should be the other way around. Yeah. X-axis is columns. So we have the order date and then we have the sales. So now we have a line chart. Let me change that to an area chart. So there's an area chart here. All right, so now we have the sales by date and we want it to be monthly. So I'm just going to select month here. Now you'll see two sets here. You see year, quarter, month, day, and you see year, quarter, month, day again. What's the difference here? Well, this is just a part of the date. So if I select month here, it is just going to show me January, February, March, April, all the way up to December. But it's going to aggregate over the year. So this contains the data for January across all the years. So this just extracts out the month part. On the other hand, when we select month here, you can see it says May 2015. So this is going to actually separate out the months by year. Okay. So keep that in mind that you can either pick out the part of the date or you can use the entire date and simply choose the granularity. Okay. So now we have month-wise sales. Now we're slowly getting there. But of course, we want to break it down by category. We want to look at different categories. So I want to take category here and put it into row. And now we have furniture, office supplies, and technology. So now we're getting a lot closer to this graphic here. Okay. Next, there is a question. You want to separate out profitable and unprofitable categories of products. How do we do that? Well, this is now a little bit tricky because we want to figure out profitable orders and unprofitable orders. And we want to take the sales from profitable orders and show them in a different color. And we want to take the sales from unprofitable orders and show them in a different color. So this requires in Tableau. So every software will have its own way of doing something like this. But here's one thing I can do. I can select order ID and I can select profit for the order ID. So using command, I do that. And then I'm just going to click here and create a new, let me do that again. Order ID and profit. Yeah, and I'm going to click here and create a new LOD calculation. Okay. So this is something specific to Tableau, but I'll tell you what it means. What we are saying here is, remember that an order ID can have multiple rows because we have line items in the orders table. So we are saying that for every order ID, so we're saying fix every order ID, and for every order ID, calculate the sum of the profit. Okay. And you can see that this looks like a dictionary or a key value pair. So we're saying that against every order ID, compute the profit, the sum of the profit for that order. So you take all the rows for that order ID, compute the sum of the profit. And to check whether an order is profitable, we can simply check if the total profit for an order is greater than 0. So for each order, we are going to add a new column called profitable sale. Yeah. For each order, we are going to add a new column called profitable sale. And that is going to be true if the order was profitable. Otherwise, it's going to be false if the order was unprofitable. So I'm just going to enter that. And profitable sale has the values true and false. And we can actually give those values true and false. First of all, let's just drag it in here. So let me just drag in profitable sales into color so that we can show the sale. You can see here profitable and unprofitable. We are showing it separately. I think one thing we may want to do is just stack this thing one on top of the other. So I am just going to, I'm just going to stack these charts together. I just want the area charts to be stacked on top of the other. So let's see, aggregate measures. I think it is tagged already. All right. Maybe we want to show, it is tagged already. So what this is telling us is that you have the profitable sales are 19,350 and the unprofitable sales are 4,467. I would actually want to use the other order. I would want to maybe show the unprofitable sales below. So I'm just going to go here. Let me just first give it aliases. So I'm going to call false, not profitable. And I'm going to select true and call it profitable. Okay. So now we have profitable and not profitable. That's good. I would also want to change the sort order of these. So let me see if I can figure out that. Yeah. So let me just change the sort order to manual, and I just want to show profitable above not profitable. Okay. So those are just all the small details that you will have in every piece of software, something that you would just have to search and look up or maybe read through the docs. But what we've achieved after doing all this is we are showing profitable sale, non-profitable sale here in orange. We are showing profitable sale in blue. And we can then maybe, and we have this filter here. So we can actually also turn off specific parts. So let's say if we just want to look at non-profitable sales, if we look in profitable, we can just look at profitable. If we look at not profitable, we can just look at the not profitable sales. Okay. Yep. So I think that covers everything. I think that covers everything that we wanted to do. Let's see if there was something else. Yeah, one other thing we can do is maybe we can also order a filter by order date. Right now it has data for 2018 to 2022. Let me just take order date and put it into filters. And there are many ways you can create filters. You can create a drop down of years, quarters, months, etc. I'm just going to select range of dates. And let me just hit OK here. And let me show that filter. So now you have this order date filter, and I can drag this around. And once I drag this around, you'll see that the chart changes automatically. Okay. So that makes it very nice and interactive. If I just want to look at the data for the last few months, so I can just select the last few months and then drill into the data for just the last few months. Okay. So that's how you create an area chart, stacked area chart using a computed column. Now, you may want to just check out this thing called the level of detail expression. What we're doing is we're saying that for every order, we want to compute this quantity, which is whether the order was profitable, how we did it. Okay. One other thing is tooltip styling. You see here, we are looking at all this information like profitable, question mark, profitable, category, furniture, etc., etc. We can actually change what we show in the tooltip. So I'm just going to click tooltip here, and I'm going to change this to what I'm seeing here. So we have category, and then we have month, and then we have order, profitable, sales, and profit. So let's just do that. We want to put in category, month, order, profitable, sales, and profit. Okay. Now, of course, we don't want to show this fixed information. We want to show actual data. So we want to show data from the chart. So I can actually go here and I can select from here one of the fields that are there in the visualization. So I'm going to select category, and then in the tooltip, I'm going to select the month, order date. Then I'm going to select profitable or not profitable. And then I'm going to select the sale or sales. and I'm going to insert the sales value here, the sum of sales and the profit for this selected data. So I'm going to insert the sum of profit as well. Yep. And let's just get rid of that. And we can also just change the size here. We can maybe go 12 here. We can make it bold. It's already bold. We can maybe just change the color here. And let's click OK. So now you see, now this says furniture December 2018 profitable sales, and then there's a profit as well. Yep. So here I may have to actually fix this. You can see it says some profit here. There's a small error in the formula. So let me just fix that. Okay. One other thing I can do is I can just improve the sales column here. I can show it as a dollar. So I can just go here, select number format and select currency standard. And that's going to make it a currency. Okay. Yeah, I guess that covers it. There is still an issue I need to fix here. You can see in the tooltip, it still says some profit. So I may have to figure out how to fix that. So now here's an exercise. What are the total month-wise sales, profitable and unprofitable, across different customer segments? So now instead of doing it across the product categories, we want to do it across different customer segments. And I'll show you how easy it is to do. Let me just bring in a new sheet, or let me just right click on this, click duplicate. And I'm just going to call this sales by segment. And all we want to do is we want to replace the category of product with the segment of user. So let me just close that and let me get segment here and put it on top. So now I'm replacing category with segment, and you can see that the chart has changed. Now we have consumer, corporate, home office, and we have sales. And this is the sales data. By the way, if you want to hide the sales here, you can actually unselect show header, and that is going to hide the sales. But it seems like it also hides the data here. But yeah, there's a way to just turn off the sales as well. Okay. So you can actually turn off specific pieces of the information that you want to hide or show. So now we have consumer, corporate, home office, customer, sales. So that's a very quick way to just create a copy of a sheet and make changes. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Let us compute some key performance indicators for a given time range. So here are some things that if let's say you're preparing some kind of an executive summary, you would have to quote some actual numbers at the very top. So here are some numbers that you may want to show for a given time range. Let's say as an executive, I want to know what we have been doing in the last month or so. So maybe I want to know the total sales, the total profit, the profit ratio, the profit per order, sales per customer, average discount, and quantity sold. So maybe we want to show it in a table like this. So how can we do that? Well, the way to do that is using a text table. So first we will compute all of these values. Now we already have sales, so we don't have to worry about sales. So I'm just going to create a new sheet, call it key performance indicators. Yep. And I am going to now look at the data that I need. Total sales, we have sales, so we should be able to get total sales in. That should not be difficult. We have total profit as well. We've already computed a profit ratio too. We may want to compute a profit per order. So how do we compute a profit per order? Well, let's see. Let us once again do new calculated field, and let me call this profit per order. So again, what I want to compute is given any selection of columns or given any selection of rows, we want to figure out what is the profit per order, which will be the sum of profit divided by the number of orders. So the number of orders would be count distinct values in the order ID column. So if we take the sum of profit across a given, we have a bunch of rows, let's say all the data for March of this year, and we add up all the profits for all those rows, that gives us the total profit. And then we count how many unique order IDs we have. So that's why we have count D or count distinct. That gives us the unique order IDs. Remember, order IDs can show up in multiple rows. So that will give us the average profit per order. So let's call it profit per order. So we have that. Let's also grab the sales per customer. Let's add a field sales per customer. Again, given any set of rows, we should be able to calculate the sales per customer. So for sales per customer, we would count, the sales is again a dollar value. So we do sum sales divided by count D customer. Okay, so we just count the distinct number of customer names, or it could be customer IDs if you think customers may have matching names. And again, given a set of rows, let's say the data for March and April of this year, we would compute the sum of sales and we would divide that by the unique number of customer names we have. That would give us a sales per customer. All right, next up we have average discount. So what is the average discount? Well, that's simply the average of discount. I think that is something that we should be able to calculate directly from the discount. And then we have quantity sold. So I think we should be able to calculate that too. Okay, so here's how we do this. Here's how we actually show that table. Now remember, we have this auto-generated field called measure names. So we can simply do this. We can just drag measure names here, and it's going to show us all the measures and some kind of a total for each measure. So for example, here it's telling us the total count of orders, the total count of people, total count of returns, etc., etc. Okay. Now we may not need all of these. So we may just want to change this to one. We'll just change that to a table. So yeah, we may not need all of these. So I'm just going to delete some of these. I am going to remove, we don't need a count of orders. So I'm just going to remove that. We need sales, profit ratio, profit per order, sales per customer. Okay, so we do need total sales. So we have sales here and we already have the sum of sales. So this is actually the total sales. We do need the average discount. So with discount, we don't want the sum, we want the average. So I'm just going to change the measure to average. And what's the order? We want total sales at the top. So I'm just going to move total sales at the very top. And then we want total profit below it. So I'm going to take the total profit right below it. Then we want the profit ratio. So I'm going to take the profit ratio and move it right below total profit. What else? We want the profit per order, sales per customer. So profit per order, sales per customer. Yeah, sales per customer. And we need the quantity sold. Quantity sold is simply the sum of quantity, the sum of total quantity of products sold. Then we don't need this, so I'm going to remove this. And we don't need count of returns, so I'm going to remove this. We do need the average discount. So let's grab that as well. Okay. Now we want to show them as a horizontal table. So now we made that a horizontal table. So what did I do? I simply pulled in measure names here, and the measure names then automatically created a table with all the names of all the measures and a measure or an aggregate for each of the numerical columns. Okay, so these were all the numerical columns and there was some extra, and it gave me an aggregate for each of these. Next thing we can do is just rename these to total sales, total profit. So let me just rename this to, oops. Yeah, let's just rename this format. Oh yeah, so it's called edit alias. So yeah, just click edit alias and let's call that total sales. And let's call that total profit. And this is just the profit ratio. Yeah, the profit ratio. So let's call that profit ratio. That's fine. Profit per order, sales per customer, average discount, and quantity sold. Let's just call that quantity sold. Okay. And then we may also want to just change these formats. So total sales is a currency. So I'm just going to go into format and change this to currency. Then total profit is also a currency. So once again, go into format, change the currency. And profit ratio is a percentage. So I'm just going to change the format and change this to a percentage. And now it actually shows up. Profit per order. Again, this is a dollar value. So I'm going to change this profit per order, change the format to currency. Then we have sales per customer, go ahead, format, change the format to currency. Average discount is a percentage. So once again, go into format. So formats are very important. I mean, these are small changes, cosmetic changes, but if you use the if you use the wrong format, then you're not conveying the right information. Okay. So now we have this information. You can see that we've arrived at exactly the same result. And you can probably guess what we'll do next. We want to be able to filter this by date range. So we'll just grab the range. We'll just grab the order date here. Yep. And put that into filters and just allow selecting a range of dates. So we click next and that allows selecting a range of dates. Okay. And I can click show filters here, show filter. And there we go. Now you can also allow these to just expand out a little bit. If you say full width, it can just expand out and occupy the full width. And now here we have order date. So I can just select a specific region. So if I filter by order date, then we're taking just those dates. And from those dates, we are computing all of these aggregates, right? And remember, some of these aggregates are actually based on values that we computed, the calculated values that we defined. So that's how you do some calculations and then you do aggregations over calculations and then you apply filters to those aggregations. And I hope you can start to see how this makes Tableau so powerful. All right, so that has set it up. And I encourage you to just come up with some other questions related to sales, related to profits, and try to answer them by creating some more visualizations. Maybe try and create every single type of visualization here. There are about 24. And let's see if we have any questions here. So here's a question. What is the profit ratio for cities in a given state? So let's do that. I think this we can execute easily. So let me just do profit ratio by city, right? And let's just select the city and let us select the profit ratio. We have a profit ratio column here and I'm just going to click show me and I'm going to create a bar chart. So that creates a bar chart. That's nice. Currently these are sorted by the city names, but I would much rather sort these by the profit ratio. So I'm just going to use this small sort button here. And now these are sorted by profit ratio, but let's do that from lowest to highest. Okay, so now these are sorted by profit ratio. Now, one other thing that I'm going to do is I'm also going to color the bars with the profit ratio, because remember we established a color scheme here, minus 0.5 to 0.5. So I want to use the same color scheme just to be consistent. So I'm also going to take the profit ratio and drag it onto color here. And then here I'm just going to click on color and edit colors and apply the same rules here. So I'm going to select orange blues. Let's see, orange blue diverging and make it stepped, make it 6, make it use full color range, advanced, select the start to minus 0.5 and select the end to plus 0.5. Okay, that is much nicer. Okay, seems like the profit in certain cities is actually quite high. So I may have to just change this to minus 3 to 3. Or you know what, let me just skip this for now. We'll figure it out later. So this is where the question of standardization comes into picture, right? Now, if we are putting the profit ratio for a particular city can go into a large negative value, and that is minus 2.7. So maybe we should go back and update that initial old color scale and change that also to minus 2.7 to 0.5. Okay, so it's something to think about, that you should be standardizing these color ranges. Otherwise, visually, it may be inconsistent and it may cause some confusion for people. But yeah, I'm just going to leave that here for now. Not something I'm going to fix right now. Okay, now one thing we can do here is maybe just add a filter for state, but maybe we can do something a little more interesting. Instead of just adding a filter for state here and a drop down for state here, what if we could take this and just show it somehow on top of this? Like when I hover over a state, what if we could actually show the profit ratios for individual cities in that state? And let's see if we can do that. So I'll just show you how to do that. One other thing we can do is maybe we should also show the numbers here, because it's a bit hard to actually look through this number. So I'm just going to change the number format and change the number format to percentage. So yeah, now these are percentages. All right, let's just do it here. Format. And let's change the number format to percentage. Okay, I'm not sure why the percentage is not applying here, but it should. So the number format should change to percentage. Maybe it's a little bit slow on my end, but yeah, the number format can be changed to percentage. One other thing we can do is we can actually show markers. So we can, let's see, we can do this. We can show labels here in the marks. So if we just click show mark labels, this is actually showing us, yeah, there we go. Now we have the percentage. So the profit percentage is minus 270% for the city of Abilene, I believe. And then the highest is here, Grand Island. The profit percentage is 50%. So it goes from orange to blue. Okay, one other thing I'm going to do is just hide these labels and these titles, because we want to embed this chart inside another chart. So I'm just going to hide this. So I'm going to unselect show header. So now we just have this chart here, which shows profit ratio. And now we want to embed this chart inside this chart. Okay. So here I'm just going to have to follow some instructions to do it. All right. The first thing I'll do is there is a tooltip here. So I'm just going to disable this tooltip, because the tooltip inside a tooltip is going to be a bit confusing. So let me just hide tooltip here. So there's no tooltips. There is just a city, and then there is a profit margin. Then let's come in here into profit ratio by geography. You have all these. And let's click tooltip. And let's get rid of what we have here. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just insert sheets, profit ratio by city. Okay. And let me just do OK here. And let's see what happens. So you can see now automatically the filter of the state is applied to the profit ratio column. And now you can see for each time I hover over a state, it actually shows me the profit ratio for that specific city, or for all the cities in that state. So isn't that nice? And we can also just make it slightly nicer, because we also want to show the overall profit ratio. So I'm just going to put in the state and the profit ratio overall. Yep, state and profit ratio overall. So I'm just going to click tooltip and put the state name here. So I'm just going to go insert state and the profit ratio overall, which will be the aggregated profit ratio. And I am going to just type in here, type in profit ratio by city. Make that a little bigger, make that maybe 12. Yeah, bold, and just put that in orange. Yep, so there you go. I think one other thing you can do is you can, I think you can turn this off. We can turn off the selection so that we now do not actually allow selection by a category. But now this makes it a little faster. So so now we have the state. You hover over a state and you see the profit ratio by city. And you have and you can also see how many cities you have in each. So you have in Indiana, you have a lot of cities, and then you have Pennsylvania, and you can see that the profitable places, you can see that all the cities are mostly profitable. And then if you go to Colorado, you can see you have a bunch of cities where you have a very high loss ratio. Okay. All right. So that's all the different visualizations that we're looking at today. And there are many more types of visualizations, so you can check them out. But just to maybe recap, these are the different components of the visualization view. So you have a title for the visualization here. And then you have these filters on the side here. Then you have the axes. So this is the axis title category. And then this is also an axis title. This is the x-axis order date / region. So here you have order date grouped by years, and then here you have the regions internally. So both of these are order date and region are both present in the columns field, and that's why both of them show up here. Then you have profit. So you have profit here as well. So profit is also a axis title. And then you have these actual labels, and then you have, these are called marks. So these are called marks on the actual chart here. These are all the things that you can put into a chart. Let's talk about creating and publishing dashboards using Tableau. So let's create an executive overview dashboard, which shows information from all of these sheets. So here's what this will look like. There will be the overall sales, profit, profit ratio, profit per order, sales per customer, average discount, and quantity sold. That information at the top. Below it, we will have this graph, which people can hover over. Then there will be some filters here for region, order date, profit ratio, and a selection for profit ratio percentage. Then there will be the monthly sales by segment and monthly sales by category. And we would like these filters to get applied to all the charts, not just a single chart. So we'll see how to do that. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We go in here and click new dashboard, and let's call this dashboard executive overview. And before we put in any sheets into the dashboard, it's always a good idea to just decide what kind of a layout we want to use. So there are these layout containers like horizontal and vertical. So you can use those to select the layout. So I'm just going to first create a vertical container here. And there's a size of the dashboard that also you can decide, like for different, you can actually change the layout based on different screens, but I'm just going to select automatic here. And this is just going to be responsive. It's going to automatically resize to fit any screen. All right. So now I have this vertical container, and we can now put in sheets one by one into this vertical container. So let's first put in key performance indices here, key performance indicators into the vertical container. Maybe before I do that, let me just get rid of this order date filter because we'll apply it in a different way. So let me just remove this. Yeah. All right. So let's get the key performance indicators here on top. That's great. Let's maybe get the chart that we have, the profit ratio by geography. Yeah. So that's there too. Maybe I want to put all these filters next to the chart and not on the side by itself. So let me just drag in a horizontal container and let me just drag in profit ratio by geography inside. Okay, that doesn't seem to make a difference. All right, seems like the filters are always going to be on the side. Never mind. Then below this, let me create a horizontal container below where we'll share the remaining two columns. So let's get the sales by category here, or sales by segment. Yeah, let's get the sales by category here in this horizontal container, and sales by segment in this horizontal container. So you want to use the containers, horizontal and vertical containers. First, we used a vertical container to put all the data below, to put all the data inside it. And then we used a horizontal container to put these two side by side. I would still want to just show these along with just the map. So I don't know how to do that. Let me just give it another shot. Okay, so now let's just grab a horizontal container here. Okay, that's a horizontal container. Let's get profit ratio by geography into the horizontal container. Okay, it doesn't seem to be working. Yeah, so let's get the sales now, sales by category and sales by segment. Yep. Okay, so our dashboard is starting to take shape. Now we have profit ratio by geography. We have key performance indicators, profit ratio by geography, sales by segment, sales by category. Let's start applying some common filters. First of all, I'm going to just remove this part because this doesn't seem to be useful. So I'm just going to remove the title here. to make more space. Then let's resize this a little bit. Let's see what else do we want to do here? I think it would be nice to hide sales here. So let me see if I can go back into sales by category and hide the sales, just hide the title. Let's go into edit axis and let's go into title and remove the title here, so that we have the text but we don't have the titles. Similarly, sales by segment, let's go into edit axis, go to title and remove the title here. So now it's starting to look nicer. We have segment, we have consumer, and then we have these values for the amount of money that this represents, but without actually saying sales, because it says sales at the top. So now we can go into the layout pane here, and into the layout pane, we can now actually look at the structure of the dashboard. So we have the tiled dashboard here, and in the tiled dashboard, we have a horizontal, and then we have a bunch of vertical tabs here. So we have the tiled dashboard. Inside it, we have this horizontal container. Inside it, we have this vertical container. Inside the vertical container, we have the key performance indicators. Then we have the profit ratio, and then we have a bunch of other stuff. So we have this profit ratio, and then we have inside the horizontal container, a bunch of sales by segment as well. Okay. Now, one thing we can do here is actually go in and remove specific parts. Let's say within the filters, maybe we want to keep the profit ratio. Maybe we don't want to keep the profit ratio filter. If we don't want to keep it, then we can actually remove it. We can just hit delete and we can remove it. I definitely want to remove this one, profitable sales. So I'm just going to remove from dashboard. So this is not going to show up here. I do want to keep order date around, but there are a couple of these order date columns. So let me just remove one of them. Remove from dashboard. I do want to show order date at the very top. So I've just moved order date. Let's see. I think we can just move it here. So if we select order date, we can move it to the top. Yeah, this is a bit tricky. Yeah, there we go. So we have order date and we can move it to the top. We have region. Maybe we can show region right above. So let's select region and let's move that up here. Then maybe we have, let's maybe also hide the profit ratio. I don't think it's very useful here. So I'm just going to remove this from dashboard as well. Next up, I would want this order date column to apply to all the different charts, not just a single chart. So we can just right click on this and apply to all using this related data source. Yeah, all using related data sources. So I'm just going to select that. So now when I select an order date, if I just change the order date here, you can see that it affects all the data. Total sales, it affects these charts here. It affects these calculations here, sales calculations, all of them, right? So that's nice. So now we have applied the filter to each of the worksheets, and we have also reordered the filters. We can also add this thing called a filter action. One thing we may also want to add is, let's say if I select a particular state, right now I'm only looking at the data for the state. I would like that filter to apply across the entire dashboard, and that would be very nice. So how do we do that? All right, so we have this dashboard and then we have actions, and in this actions, we are going to add an action, and this action is going to be a filter action. And the source for this action is going to be profit ratio by geography. And we run this action on select. So when we select a state, we want to apply it. And the target is going to be, the target is just going to be all of these, I believe. I think I have a screenshot here. Yeah, the target is going to be all the other. So it's going to apply that filter. And there's only going to be one field. The field that we are going to add is, let's see. The field is state. So let me just grab state here. Yeah, this is now getting into a slightly complicated territory. So it's not something that you would figure out on your own. It's something that you would have to look up. So we are selecting profit ratio by geography, and on selecting that, we will show all the values for these three columns only by that filter, which is, yeah. So we have a source field and the target field is going to be state. I think that's fine. So this looks good to me. And if we just do that and click OK, this should now change. Yes. And you can now see, now we only have the data for the particular state when we click on it. So let's just click on, what's this? Let's click on New York. You can see all the data has changed. The total sales have changed to 310,000. You can see that the category and segment data has changed. It has gone down significantly. So that just shows you the data for New York. So that's nice. And we also have these region filters here. So remember, we can still also do this. We can select a single region and then just focus on on that specific region. So yeah, it's a fairly customizable dashboard. Let's go one step further. Let us also maybe just rename this to the title here. Let's rename that to Executive Overview. Okay. And let's try and show, maybe if we select a particular state, let us just try and show the state name here as well. So how do we do that? Well, that's again a little complicated. So edit titles to show dynamic text based on the selected state on the map. Let's see how we do that. So Executive Overview. And here I'm just going to insert state. Great. That's a good thing with Tableau. Like, I guess the most of the information that you look for is mostly always present right there. And then sales, and I'm going to just insert state here. And let me also just insert here sales by category. Insert state. There you go. Okay. So now we have all of this information and let's try it out. Let's click Montana. So now it says Executive Overview for Montana. Sales by segment on Montana, sales by category for Montana. Now, of course, we can combine this by order date as well. If you want to look for just a few dates, we can do that filter as well. That gets applied to all of them. And this gives us a sense of the profit ratio. And we can also hover over and see the profit ratio 0.3286. Should be a percentage. We can fix that easily. And then we have a selection of regions as well. So that's your dashboard right there. And now we are ready to publish this dashboard. So let's go down. To publish this dashboard, you go to File, Save to Tableau Public As. The first time you'll have to do this, Save to Tableau Public As. And I'm just going to call this Executive Overview Superstore. Yeah, and click Save. Now that's going to take a while because it is going to upload all of this information to the server. And remember, with Tableau Public, there is a limited number of things you can do. You cannot actually connect to a SQL server. So this is going to actually package up all the data into this workbook and send it along the Excel workbook internally as well. But what you would do with Tableau Desktop, which is what you would be using within a company, is when you publish, it will be published to the internal server of the company, and it will be able to stay connected on the cloud with the MySQL database that you have, so that the data can be updated live. Okay. So here's the Executive Overview dashboard, and I can share this. I think I can just do, let's see, share, and just copy the link here. Let me just copy the link and send it to you here in the chat. And then you can open up this dashboard and check it out right now. There you go. Now you can open up this dashboard. You can play with it. You can change the order date. I've set a default order date here, but you can change that. You can click on a state. And when you click on a state, that automatically filters out the data. It also tells you that now you're looking at a particular particular state. So I think this is pretty powerful, pretty flexible. This looks good. And How this would work in a company is you would take this link and then you would share this link with somebody who needs to view the dashboard, and only they will be able to view it once they log in with your company account. So all of your dashboards, all of your workbooks can be saved locally on your computer, but anything that you push to the Tableau cloud will be saved in your company's private cloud, and only people who have access to your company's private cloud as editors or viewers will be able to edit or view these workbooks. And there are a bunch of such controls on who can see what, etc., etc. And of course, the data connections will be maintained. So your job will be to maybe work for a couple of weeks or a month or so and set up a dashboard which your executives can look at daily, and the data will automatically get updated because instead of being connected to an Excel file, the data will you will be connected to a MySQL server or something like that, or maybe a bunch of different sources. Maybe you'll be connected to Salesforce and Google Analytics and etc., etc. And you can look at this Tableau dashboard every day, which is updating in real time, and you can interact and do whatever slicing and dicing you need to do. And that's what is a very useful thing for companies. That's why Tableau is somewhat expensive. It starts at, I think, about $70 per editor per month. Viewers are free, but editors are fairly expensive. And then, of course, if you want more integrations and some more advanced features, it can get a little more expensive too. So that's how to publish to Tableau Public. So if you are working on any Tableau projects, do publish them to Tableau Public. As you can see here, this is the executive overview. I may want to also reorder the sheets. Maybe I want to move this to the beginning so that when it gets saved, that's the first thing that shows up. There you go. So that will show the nice preview here as well. But yeah, put together all your visualizations on your Tableau public profile for sure. There's one last topic we'll cover, which is working with multiple tables and multiple data sets. Okay, so let's talk about working with multiple data sets and tables. We're going to do this very briefly. And again, this is part of this tutorial series. There is a tutorial series on relationships, and this contains all the information on how to work with multiple tables. But this is the data set that we'll work with. It's a different data set than the one we just looked at. In this case, there is a product table. There are a bunch of products. Imagine this is a department store. So there are a bunch of products, and then there are a bunch of customers, and then there are a bunch of transactions those customers have made. So each time they visit, they make a transaction. Then for each transaction, there are details. So there is a transaction detail table, which tells you for a particular transaction, a particular product was sold in a certain quantity. So you can see with transaction detail table, you have table 1, transaction ID 1, product ID 3 and product ID 1, quantity sold 2 and 1. Okay, so this is called I believe this is called the normalized format. So this is where you have all these tables which are all representing, there is no duplication of information. And to get it into the format that we have, you would have to do joins, or you would have to use relationships in Tableau. So let's see if Tableau can figure out the relationships between all of these tables easily enough. And then of course there's categories between products as well. So here is an Excel sheet that we will use. I'm just going to put that here on my desktop, the convenience store. And let's open up another Tableau project. So I'm just going to click Microsoft Excel, open convenience store. And now we have yet another new Tableau project. And let's go step by step. Maybe the first thing I want to pull in is products. Yeah, so let me just pull in products here. Okay. Next, I know that there is a relationship between products and categories. So let me just pull in category here too. There we go. And the category ID, it lines up category IDs automatically. That's great. We can configure that there is there's a many to one relationship between products to categories. So we can configure that. You have one category can have many products, or just leave it as many to many as well. It will work out just fine. Then let's connect, what do we have here? Transaction details. So let's just bring in transaction details here. And Tableau figures out that it is connected to product. Great, using the product ID. Let us bring in transactions as well. So transactions are not connected to category, they're actually connected to transaction details. Yup. And then we have customers that are connected to the transaction table. So there we have customers, and the connection is the customer ID. Now, if you did not drag it correctly, let's say you dragged it like this, then Tableau will tell you that it could not detect a column. So you have the option to actually fix that. Okay, so that's where you can just fix these connections. So wherever you have an improper connection, you will see an error and you will be able to fix it. Okay. By the way, if the names of the columns are not the same, you can actually edit. You can select the right column names as well. So if you know that the column names are different, you can still just put two tables, connect two tables using a relationship, and then just select the proper column names from each table. Okay, that looks good. And let's just browse the data. So seems like we have about 8 products here. Let's check out the transactions. Seems like we have only 4 transactions. It's a small data set. Let us call this convenience store. Let's see if we can answer some of these questions. Number 1, what are the best selling and worst selling products? Okay. So I haven't done, seems like I'm still working in the same workbook. So I may just want to create a new workbook. So I can just click new here. Let me just set up this new workbook here to make sure I'm not disturbing the old workbook there. And let's just bring in all of these things again. So we have category, and then we have product, and then we have transaction details, and then we have transactions connected to transaction details, and every customer engages in a transaction. So let's just connect that as well. And finally, we have our, I guess that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables. Great. Let's go to sheet 1. Let's try to answer the first question. The first question is best and worst selling products. Yeah, so I'm just going to call this best and worst selling product. Best and worst selling products. All right. And what do we want here? We want the best selling and the worst selling products, and we also want to show the product IDs. So let's grab product name first, and let's just select product name, and let us also select the quantity sold. Yeah, let's just select the quantity sold, and let's just show a bar chart. Let's see if that works. Yeah, that seems like that just works. So quantity sold comes from transaction details, and product comes from the product column, and they are not directly connected. They are connected. Yeah, they are connected directly in this case. So yeah, and Tableau is able to figure out the connection, and maybe we can just sort. We can sort by quantity sold. So now we know that water is the highest selling product, followed by magazine, juice, chocolate bar, book, potato chips. You also have pencil and pen, which are not sold at all. So if you want, you could remove these. You could actually filter this data out. But let's keep those there because we want to know the best and worst selling products. What else can we do here? Maybe we can just fit the entire view, just make it a little bigger, a little nicer to look at. And we also want a product ID. So I'm just going to grab the product ID and just put it here in rows. So now we have the product ID, product name, and then we here have the information about the number of units that we've sold for each product. So that was easy. We didn't even have to think about creating joins and such once we set up the relationships. Next, what is the contribution margin per product? So the contribution margin is the unit price minus unit cost. Let's see. So we will create a calculated value. So I'm just going to do create calculated field, and I'm just going to call it contribution margin. And this is going to be a row level field. So I'm just going to do unit price minus unit cost, and just click OK. And that gives us a contribution margin. So we want to find out what was the contribution margin per product. So let's create a new sheet, call that contribution margin per product, create, and we select a product name, we select a contribution margin. How do we want to visualize it? Let's do a bar chart again, no problem. Let's sort by contribution margin and let's fit the entire view. So now we have the contribution margin per product. One thing we may want to do here is maybe, if maybe we want to show it as a percentage. If you want to show it as a percentage, then we can also divide by the unit cost and or the unit price, and then that can give us the margin percentage, but it's fine as it is. So once again, this wasn't that difficult to do. Okay, let's see. Now this is getting interesting. What were the sales, revenue, profit, and profit margin per category and product? Sales revenue, profit, and profit margin. Let's see. So first we may have to just figure out what the profit is. And profit is simply the revenue. Okay, first maybe we'll have to figure out what is the sales, what is the revenue. So the revenue would simply be the quantity sold multiplied by the unit price. I believe that would be the revenue. Yeah, the sales revenue would be simply the quantity sold multiplied by the unit price. So let's do that. Let's add a revenue column. Let's call it revenue. And that is simply quantity sold multiplied by the unit price. And that's again row wise for a particular transaction detail. So when we click OK, it automatically figures out that we are dealing with the transaction detail field here, because both quantity sold, it actually puts it below. So quantity sold comes from transaction details and unit price comes from product. So it cannot fit in any single table. So that's why it's tracked here under revenue. So you see here, we are just intuitively typing out these formulae, and Tableau's are automatically figuring out which table to pick the data from, how to join the data, and how to then calculate the value. So that's the revenue. Let's calculate the profit. Let's call this profit. And what's the profit? Well, the profit is the difference between the price and the cost, which we have as contribution margin. So that's great. Multiplied by the quantity sold. That should give us the profit. So now we have profit. Now we have revenue. Now we want the profit margin. So what's the profit margin? Let's say you have the profits for a bunch of rows. You have a revenue for a bunch of rows. What's the profit margin? Let's do this. Profit margin. So we do a total sum and we type a profit. Let's get the sum of all the profits for the rows that are selected, divided by the sum of all the revenues, and that should give you the profit margin. So I think that's the profit margin. That's done. And let's just and we want this information per category and per product. Okay, let's see if we can do this then. Let's just call it key performance indicators or revenues and profits. Okay, so here I'm thinking we want to show the profit, we want to show the profit margin, we want to show the revenue, and we want to show what else? Yeah, these three things, right? So if we just select these, maybe if we just click measure names and drop it in here, that should show you all of these. And of course we don't want all. So we just want to show the important stuff. So let's remove the things that we don't need. So let's remove product, transaction, etc., etc. Let's simply keep the columns that we want to keep. So here now we have the total profit, we have the total profit margin, we have the total quantity sold. I guess let's remove that too. We want the revenue, we don't want the sum of unit cost or the sum of unit price. And let's reorder these as well. So now we have the revenue, profit, and profit margin. And maybe let's switch the columns and rows here. So this shows up here and we want to show this by product and by category. So first let's drag in product here, product name. So now we have this by product name, and then let's drag in the category. So let's just grab the category name. There we have the category name. And now we have, now we can format these. So let's just format these. This will be a currency. And the profit will also be a currency. So let me just format this as well. This will be a currency too. And then the profit margin. This is just an aggregate that we've already defined. So this is going to be a percentage. So let's format that as a percentage. And that's it. So now we have beverages, reading materials, snacks, stationery. There are 2 products in each category. This is the revenue per product. This is the total revenue from beverages. This is the total revenue or total profit from beverages. This is the profit margin that we have been able to obtain. And once again, if you want to just spread this out, we can spread this out a little bit. I just want to show you one other thing, which is you can actually show totals here. You can show row wise and column wise totals. Let's see. How do we add the totals? Okay, there's a way to show totals. Let's just figure out Tableau. Column totals. How do you do that? In the analytics pane under summarized. I see. So this is how you do it. So this is now we're finally getting to add totals. And you take totals and then you drag it. So you take the totals and then you drag it into whether you want to show them by column or by row. So let's say we want to show the total, we want to show totals by different columns like beverages. So you want to show subtotals first. So here we have total for the beverage column. We have a total for the beverages, total for reading material, total for snacks. We can do that. If you want to show the grand total as well, we can show the grand total as well. So we can show column wise grand totals. So here we have the grand total, which is about $31. So you can have a bunch of aggregates and you can have the broken down information all in one place. So that's useful. Okay, next we have a question. What were the most frequent customers and the most profitable customers? I think I'll do one and then the other one you can probably figure out on your own. So let's get customer name and let's get maybe the number of transactions done by them. Yep. So maybe just get the number of transactions done by customers. And we just want to count those. So let's see, let's just get the transaction count. So customer name and transaction count. And let's show that as a, maybe this time let's use a okay, let's just do a horizontal bar chart. Yep. There we go. So now we have, seems like Doug has made 2 transactions. Sarah has made 1 and then null, maybe one of the transactions, a customer name is missing. That's why you have a null here. But yeah, these are the most common customers or most frequent customers. And what would you have to do to change this to most profitable? Well, I would just duplicate this. And instead of the count of transaction, I would simply maybe just get, let's see, the sum of unit prices of all the products that they have bought across all the tables. So can you see what's happening here? We have the customers table. From the customers table, we want to identify the transactions. From the transactions, we want to get all the product IDs and the quantities sold for all the transactions. And then we want to get the quantities sold and we want to get the product information as well and get the unit cost out of it as well to get the total unit cost. And we want to put all of that together. So I think it's not quantity sold. I think it's probably profit. We just want the most profitable customer. So I'm just going to drag profit on top of transactions. And that's just going to make it the total profit per customer. Once again, let's just fit the entire view here. And this is what it looks like. So from Doug, we have a total profit of $8.7. From Sarah, we have 8.250. And from null or the unknown customer, we have 4.25. So I think that's really handy. You don't have to think about joins and such. And that answers all these questions. Now there's a lot more you can do. There is one dataset that I would highly encourage you to check out, which is the bookstore dataset. So there is a bookstore dataset in the Get Started section. Yeah, the bookshop dataset. So you should check out this bookshop dataset, which is a much bigger dataset than the one that we were just looking at, but it's about the same range as the orders dataset that we were looking at. And it has a couple of files. So here you will get to work with multiple Excel files. And this is what it looks like. You have books, and then you have some information about books. And then you have a bunch of editions of books. You have information about publishers. You have information about sales. You have information about authors. And then you have information about a bunch of ratings about them, whether a book is a part of a series, how many times the book was included in a checkout, and if the book has won any awards. So it's a pretty good large data set that you can use for experimentation. And then there is also another additional data set called libraries. So if you have a bunch of libraries and those libraries are using certain editions of certain books, and then there are profiles of members in those libraries as well. So you can combine these two and you can ask a lot of interesting questions. And in fact, here at the very end, you have a bunch of questions that you can answer. What books are the most popular? Which are the least popular? And based on what reviews? Based on reviews, sales, checkouts, other metrics. Who was the youngest debut author? Who was the oldest? Do some publishing houses specialize in some way? So these are all open-ended questions that you can try and answer using Tableau, using this books dataset. So if you're looking to do a Tableau project, the bookshop dataset would be a good dataset to use. And this is something that you can then publish on your Tableau profile or public profile. And then you can include that in your CV or send it in whatever job application requires Tableau. It may take you a week to just figure it out, but it's worth the effort because you will learn the tool. And maybe if you want to compare Tableau with another tool like Power BI, then just go to Power BI, follow the same approach, look up the tutorials and just try and solve some of these questions yourself, then see the tutorial, then try and solve it again on your own, and do that till you figure out how to solve some of these questions, and then repeat that with different questions and different types of information. So with that, we've covered everything that we have to cover today. We looked at how to download and install Tableau, public, desktop, and web. We looked at how to connect Tableau to local files and remote data sources. Maybe let's also quickly take a look at remote data sources. I'm just going to open up Tableau desktop. I have downloaded a trial version here of Tableau desktop. And I'm just going to connect it to MySQL database. So I have a MySQL database. So I'm just going to select MySQL here. And you have to install additional drivers, which I have set up already. And I think I have put in a password. Okay. So you put in the server name. In my case, this is running on my computer, but it could be running on the cloud within your company. You put in the port, you put in a database name if you want, but you have to put in a username and password. And you can also specify some initial SQL query to get the data out. So if you just type a SQL query here, then it will run the query and get the data. Otherwise, it will get all the tables for you. And yeah, so now I'm connected to my local database. I'm going to select the classic models database. And I'm going to just pull in employees here. And I can just click update now. And that gives me information about the employees. And now we can make some relationships, but now we can start showing some information already. I believe we can do something like this: office code and employee count. So if you want to count the number of employees per office, we can just show that here and then order it here and call this employees per office. Okay. So there you go. That's how you set out connect to a SQL database. And office code 1, of course, now I have the office code. Maybe I can go back here. I can pull in offices and it automatically detects that office code line up together. Now, one thing you will not be able to do is publish this dashboard directly to Tableau Public because it's part of Tableau Desktop. If you do want to publish it to Tableau Public, you will have to extract the data out. So this will just pull in all the data, create a copy of the data, include it within your workbook, and then you can send this to Tableau public. But within your company, you'll just keep it live. Here's where you will have to decide, do you want to create a dashboard which is going to be live all the time? Which means, is it always going to use the live data from the SQL database and from whatever connections you have? Or do you want to create a one-time analysis? If you want to create a one-time analysis, you just click extract. And then the moment you hit publish or the moment you hit save, the current snapshot of the data will be pulled in, whatever is required for creating the visualizations. And then just that will be created for you, right? So you can create both live dashboards and a point in time snapshots using Tableau. And this is Tableau desktop now. This is no longer Tableau public. So we looked at setting up a data source with tables and relationships for analysis. We looked at creating interactive visualizations to answer questions about data. We also saw how to create interactive dashboards of interconnected visualizations. And then we also looked at just publishing, viewing, and sharing your dashboards online. So to learn more, definitely check out the Tableau training. There are a bunch of different videos here that you can check out. Then you should check out the Getting Started docs. For more detailed documentation, check out the Tableau help. It is quite extensive. And there's something called stories as well, which we haven't covered today. A story is simply a sequence of visualizations that can work together to convey information. So you can add that too. We didn't talk about certain tabs here. So we didn't talk about pages. So you can also learn more about pages. Pages can be used to create a transition from one state to the next state. Let's say you want to do a year by year change. You can do that. We haven't covered all the visualization types, so I encourage you to try them out. And do check out the Tableau public gallery as well. The great thing about the gallery is you can go in and then you can download. I think you can download most of these. You see here, you can actually download this as a Tableau workbook, and let's just download that. And I think you can open that up in Tableau public. So now you can actually look at the data that is underlying this dashboard. So you have this sheet called intelligence, and you can see some things going on here. You have this sheet called VERS bar. There's something going on here. So there's a lot of stuff that is overlaid here.